Natcha's breakup with her boyfriend, Kitsak, turned out to be music to her son-in-law Thanakorn's ears. He couldn't hide his happiness, and before long, the two started growing closer, very quietly and very secretly. Everything unfolded right under Theda's nose. She had no clue that her mom had split with Kitsak, let alone that her husband and her mother were getting involved in something far more scandalous. Hello and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into yet another shocking real-life story that will leave you speechless. This time, it's from the city of Mandalay, Myanmar, a case so tangled and bizarre, it's hard to wrap your head around. At first glance, it's about a seemingly perfect married couple whose life took a dark turn during the pandemic. The wife had no idea her supposedly loyal husband was involved in something far beyond anyone's imagination. But that's not all. The drama doesn't stop there. The story takes an even wilder twist when her own mother, a widowed woman with her own romantic entanglements, becomes part of the chaos. What exactly happened in this jaw-dropping case? Stick around as we uncover the full story, piece by piece. Before we jump into the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this story with your friends. Now, let's get into it. This story begins with Theda, born in 1989 and raised in the suburbs of Hanthawaddy. Known for her friendly personality, Theda had always loved singing and dancing since she was a child. She dreamed of performing on television, entertaining people with her talent. Her passion for the arts wasn't random. It was heavily influenced by her mother, Natcha, a well-known dancer from the 1970s through the early 2000s. Natcha raised Theda on her own after Theda's father disappeared without a trace. Even now, at 52 years old, Natcha still performs occasionally at parties and receptions. Meanwhile, Theda began gaining recognition as a wedding singer, though she hadn't yet made it to television. In 2015, while performing on a cruise ship, Theda met Thanakorn, a sailor 4 years her senior. The two hit it off and started dating, eventually tying the knot in August 2016. However, Thanakorn's job kept him away for long periods. He was rarely home, only visiting 2 or 3 times a year. Most of their communication happened through video calls. After their wedding, Theda stayed with her mother, Natcha, to avoid feeling lonely while her husband was away. Even when Thanakorn came home, the three of them shared the same house. Their plan to buy a place of their own was put on hold, and things continued like this until March 2020. When the pandemic hit, Thanakorn's job was temporarily suspended, leaving him stuck at home without work. His reduced income and salary cuts left him stressed. Theda, always optimistic, reassured him that things would eventually get better. She continued singing at weddings and events to make ends meet. She even suggested that he try selling saris at the market, but Thanakorn brushed it off, claiming he had no talent for business. Natcha, however, wasn't thrilled about having her son-in-law lounging around the house all day. She was annoyed by his habit of eating and sleeping while her daughter worked hard to support the household. Adding to the tension, Natcha had her own romantic entanglement, a relationship with a 29-year-old man named Kitsak, who often visited the house. Having Thanakorn at home constantly made things awkward, especially when Kitsak stayed over. Meanwhile, Thanakorn grew more comfortable with his laid-back lifestyle. Occasionally, he would drive Theda to her gigs, but by April 2021, things took an unusual turn. Thanakorn was called back to work at sea but declined, citing pandemic concerns. Instead, he focused on staying home and building a closer relationship with Natcha. In a bold move, Thanakorn secretly used money earned by Theda to buy a gold necklace for Natcha. She assumed it came from his personal savings and was flattered by the gesture. Over time, the bond between Thanakorn and his mother-in-law deepened, crossing boundaries that should never have been crossed. By this point, Thanakorn started neglecting his role as Theda's husband. He rarely accompanied her to gigs anymore, choosing instead to spend his time in Natcha's room. What began as a seemingly harmless relationship between a son-in-law and his mother-in-law spiraled into something far more troubling, leaving Theda completely in the dark. As Natcha's relationship with her boyfriend, Kitsak, dragged on, things started to fall apart. She began to feel like Kitsack was only using her for money. Every week, he'd come up with new requests, asking for a new phone, a motorcycle, cash, or even clothes for his parents. At first, blinded by love, Natcha didn't mind. But over time, as she grew closer to her son-in-law, Thanakorn, she found the courage to say no to Kitsack's endless demands. On top of that, rumors began to surface. Friends told Natcha that Kitsack had a girlfriend closer to his age and that they were planning to get married. The rumors planted seeds of doubt, and Natcha slowly distanced herself from him. This, of course, didn't sit well with Kitsack. Unemployed and heavily reliant on Natcha's generosity, he panicked as his easy cash flow dried up. His once comfortable lifestyle was slipping away, leaving him desperate. Kitsack, who often accompanied Natcha to her dancing gigs, now found it difficult to reach her. Then, one night in June 2021, after Natcha finished a performance at a wedding, Kitsack confronted her. They argued, and Natcha pulled out her phone, showing him a picture of him cozying up to another woman. Kitsack claimed the woman in the photo was just a friend, but Natcha wasn't buying it. She demanded he bring the woman to her to prove his innocence. When Kitsack fell silent, Natcha seized the moment and said, "We're done. Let's just end all your lies." The breakup didn't faze Natcha. If anything, it made her son-in-law, Thanakorn, quite happy. With Kitsack out of the picture, Natcha and Thanakorn grew even closer, all while Theda remained completely unaware of what was happening under her own roof. She didn't know her mother had ended things with Kitsack, nor did she suspect anything unusual between her husband and Natcha. June 2021 was a busy month for Theda. Her singing career was booming, and she had gigs almost every night. Exhausted from work, she spent most of her days sleeping, leaving Natcha to handle the cooking and look after Thanakorn. But on June 20th, 2021, things took an unexpected turn. While Theda was out of town for a performance, Kitsack showed up at Natcha's house unannounced, and walked in on her with Thanakorn. Furious, he accused Natcha of breaking up with him not because of his alleged girlfriend, but because she was having an affair with her own son-in-law. The confrontation quickly escalated into a shouting match. Kitsack threatened to tell Theda everything, but then he changed tactics. He demanded $10,000 in exchange for his silence, promising to keep the scandal under wraps if they paid up. Of course, Natcha and Thanakorn didn't have that kind of money. Desperate to buy time, they told Kitsack they needed a week to gather the cash. Satisfied with their answer, Kitsack stormed out, leaving behind a tense and uncertain household. As desperation set in, Natcha scrambled to find the money Kitsack demanded. After trying unsuccessfully to borrow from various sources, she turned to her daughter, Theda, for help. She told Theda that she needed the money for urgent medical treatment. Surprised, Theda questioned the claim, as her mother had seemed perfectly healthy and was still performing for money. But Natcha insisted, saying she had been hiding a heart condition for years. Unfortunately, Theda didn't have that kind of money. She and her husband had limited savings, but she promised to ask a manager for a loan to cover her mother's medical needs. However, the manager also refused, leaving Theda in a tough spot. When she broke the news to her mother, Natcha became visibly upset and angry. Trying to help, Theda suggested they visit a hospital and use the local government health card for treatment. But this only infuriated Natcha further. She dismissed the idea, claiming she didn't need healing, just the cash. By June 28, 2021, Kitsack contacted Natcha again, demanding the money. When she couldn't pay, he gave her a final 24 hours to come up with the cash. It was then that Thanakorn came up with a drastic idea: to eliminate Kitsack. Shockingly, Natcha agreed. Thanakorn reached out to a friend and acquired a weapon the following day. They arranged to meet Kitsack at an abandoned shophouse in a quiet area around 7 p.m. on June 29, 2021. When the three met, the conversation began cordially, with a handshake. But things escalated quickly. Thanakorn suddenly pulled out the gun and fired 3 shots at Kitsack. Though Kitsack managed to dodge, he was still hit by at least 1 bullet. The gunshots echoed through the area, attracting the attention of nearby pedestrians. Panicked, Thanakorn and Natchar fled the scene in their car. Meanwhile, the witnesses rushed Kitsak to the hospital, where it was later revealed that his injuries weren't life-threatening. In the chaos of the dark and hurried confrontation, Thanakorn had failed to aim properly, and Kitsak survived. The situation quickly spiraled out of control for Natchar and Thanakorn. At the hospital, Kitsak gave a full account of the incident to the police, who immediately identified Natchar and Thanakorn as the culprits. Officers moved quickly, heading straight to Natchar's home. Unaware that Kitsak had survived, Natchar and Thanakorn were relaxing in front of the television, assuming they were in the clear. When the police arrived, the pair panicked and tried to escape through the garden behind the house, but they were caught. Theda, completely blindsided, witnessed the commotion and had no idea what was going on. Her first thought was that her husband and mother might have been involved in drug trafficking or some other crime. Shocked, she screamed as the officers arrested Natchar and Thanakorn, escorting them to a police car. One of the officers invited Theda to come to the station if she wanted to learn the full story. Confused and desperate for answers, she agreed, still reeling from the unfolding nightmare. It wasn't until Theda arrived at the police station that she finally learned the truth. Kitsak, still recovering from his injuries, laid everything out in detail. At first, Theda refused to believe him. She turned to her husband, Thanakorn, demanding an explanation. But Thanakorn denied everything, insisting that Kitsak was making it all up. However, Theda's mother, Natchar, dropped a bombshell. She confessed that everything Kitsak had said was true and even admitted she had fallen in love with Thanakorn. This revelation shattered Theda. Overwhelmed with sadness and betrayal, she chose not to fight for her husband or her mother's release. Instead, she went home, emotionally drained, and decided to leave them to face the consequences of their actions. During the trial at the High Court, both Thanakorn and Natchar claimed they acted out of desperation, unable to handle Kitsak's relentless threats. Natchar revealed that her relationship with Kitsak had been one-sided for a long time. She described him as demanding and unfaithful, constantly imposing rules and making requests while betraying her trust. On September 21, 2021, the court handed down its verdict. Thanakorn and Natchar were found guilty of attempting to harm Kitsak with premeditation. Each received a 4-year prison sentence. Kitsak wasn't off the hook either. He was convicted of felony extortion and threatening behavior and was sentenced to 8 months in prison. By early 2022, Theda had made her decision. She filed for divorce from Thanakorn, officially ending their marriage on February 20, 2022. While the ordeal left her heartbroken, it also gave her the chance to rebuild her life without the shadows of betrayal and deceit hanging over her. What lessons can we learn from this story?